What's up, Rob?
How you doing, Ken?
Good. How you doing?
Did a little bit more boat riding today. Calmer waters.
Oh yeah. Did you take it out yourself or?
But I still had the guy come with me, but this time I actually drove. Like I wanted to kind of get a feel of getting the boat in and out of the slip. So I tried we did like 3 times. And it's different every time. You can't, you know what I mean? It's like it all depends the wind, the water. You just gotta kind of like squeak your way in.
Yeah, that's what happens.
But like looking out for the buoys and where you're at on the water, that's still, I don't know. I still don't quite have it. I'm a little nervous by trying to take it by myself, but what's the worst that can happen? You get stuck.
Yeah, nothing like a little experience to
Yeah, really.
the the learning curve.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to do a little time bonding with this guy. So if I can learn a little bit of which way I can go, stick to certain directions, then I don't have to get stuck or break the boat.
Did you go out by like the Manasquan Bridge or?
No, you know what? This time we actually hung like on the other way towards the Seaside Bridge. But really, what I did was I was like practicing going out and coming in and parking. You know what I mean? And then we just went to go fool around the other people's slips. I tried to pull into their, you know what I mean, like their little spots, and then back out and tried to, you know what I mean, like just help, try to figure out the boat, maneuvering it.
Cool.
Still new to me, you know what I mean? I'm used to pots and pans. I'm on the water, nautical, different.
I don't know how I acquired this, but Maria tells me that somewhere in my basement here where I am, there's a pair of, I think, of water skis. You interested?
To bring them down, I'm gonna put you on them.
I'm going to bring them down and they're yours.
It's funny because I'm interested, but I don't trust myself to pull anybody yet. I got to get more experience on the boat. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm gonna hurt somebody.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
not
I don't
much.
want to do
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to be careful with that. Yeah. Um,
that. So what else is going on? What are you guys up to?
yeah, hanging out in town. Got out to the park today. It's nice.
Yeah, a lot of people there.
Yeah, kind of, but easy to avoid them.
Yeah, it's always easier to
Uh,
avoid. There's a lot of space there.
yeah.
What about tonight's agenda? We're gonna start talking about chapter 9, B1 functions.
Yep. Move from part one tools to part two functions.
Yeah, yesterday you did a nice job taking all, like those beginning, I forget that was 8 or 9, concept seeing, not doing, all that stuff, and tying in, because I'll tell you, that was like a month's worth of conversation, I mean, whatever it's been, you put it together in like 10 minutes, but it was nicely done.
Yeah. Thanks. Good to tie it back together. Say hello to Bree,
Hey,
Lenore.
hello, hello.
How are you? Hey, Bree.
Wonderful.
Howdy, Lenore. Hi, Rebecca. I don't know if it's any of the Rebeccas that I know. How you doing, Rebecca?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well too. Do we know each other, Rebecca?
Yeah. Yeah.
How so?
Oh. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Well, thanks for coming on, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute some mics here just to keep noise down. Okay. Give it another minute, say. All right. Well, some housekeeping. We sent out a invitation for a let's call it a chat group thing, questions, answers, discussions that can take place at any time. Uh, some of you might be familiar with Slack, a business platform that does just that, work group kind of thing. Really good. Better than email because it gathers conversations in a single place, can ask questions. So uh, if you check email, you probably got an invite, and if you click somewhere in it, it'll probably take you to Slack. And if you need some help setting it up, just let me know or let someone know. Or if you're on listening to this now and you didn't get it and you'd like it, you could post on the chat box down on the bottom, and we'll send you one. How's that sound?
And if you don't see it in your inbox, mine actually went to my promotions box in my Gmail because sometimes they kind of like send it to different places. So check there because that's where mine was.
Yeah, kind of like it flags it as something that might be an advertisement, right? All right, well, we've spent, I don't know how many weeks talking about tools for those that are keeping up with where we're at. We've finished up for the most part talking about the tools. We discussed 7 tools, and now we're going to start to discuss 7 corresponding functions. Remember, we're building a model. We're building a model that you could use or not use, or use a little bit, or try on or not try on, to understand thought. It's handy. As I talked about yesterday, I never had a model. Nobody gave me a model to understand thought. Not until I came across this model. Are there other models? Oh yeah, you betcha. There's tons of models out there. This is pretty handy. So I found this pretty handy because it gives me visibility in places I've never had visibility before, like what the hell's going on in my law firm or what's going on in a particular business. And that these tools that we just finished up, we all got them. Just a matter of do you use them or what degree to use them? You want to dust them off, and if you dust them off and use them, well, now we're moving into the the functions. But let's start maybe with a little bit of review. Terry, can you put up the upside down pyramid with the programs in the pyramid, and then the interface with what we're calling supra self meta programmer?
Yeah.
Or the
Sure.
other, or you can call it soul, or whatever you'd like to call this. Thought has a direction. It does. We know that. We've laid now for however many weeks of foundations that hopefully you guys can beginning to see that the stuff we do is driven from thoughts below the level of conscious awareness. That is to say that by the time from the lower part of the pyramid, it bubbles up to the upper part of the pyramid. The upper part, at the very top level is that conscious me. I am conscious and I see what's going on and I make all my decisions in the spur of the moment, which is pretty much how I thought about things until I paid attention to what I had been reading for many years about the science. It didn't agree with my observations. I mean, I nodded my head. Yep, I get that. I read the neuroscience. Behavior is driven by a place below the level of conscious awareness, and Freud probably was the first one that introduced something like that, and we were off to the races. But reading about it and seeing it have been 2 entirely different things for me, because reading about it is more of a nod your head. Using it is what we hope that will be building some skill sets in you folks out there to pick up as you like and try this on, this model. But you'll notice at the bottom of the model, we've got this almost this interface point, this arrow, this thing that we're calling super self-meta programs, or you can call it you as a soul or the other, bearing down on or expressing through you your own programming. I always say it this way to people. This one's kind of helpful to me. I think I am a soul, and everybody else is, and the best I can ever do is express that through my programs. You think about that, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense with this model, because where's the interface there? Like, we've got this thing way at the bottom called super self-meta program, the soul that we are expressing through this human body experience through our programming. And so if the program's a little funky, a little out of link or alignment with reality, if it's a fantasy, so to speak, the best you got there is you're going to be expressing, the first interface point is at the things you believe are real, those self-meta programs. That could, it could be a trouble spot. It was for me. We've seen lots of examples. We've talked to lots of you about it, that, since thought's working in this way, you could organize it. You could deal with programs. You could unify it. And this B1 concept is all about unification. Unification of thought, unification of who you are, unification of where you, it's a big concept. It's a big concept. Often when I get new clients, I'll ask and pay attention to whether there's unity. And what do you think the chances are that, to a certain degree, greater or lesser, there's a lack of unification in the business? It's true. See it all the time. If there's not a unification, then you've got, you could say, people pulling in different directions, kind of like if you were running what do they call those teams? The crew teams that have people that are paddling on a boat, and very much depends on a unity. It doesn't matter so much how strong you are. You can put a strong person on a crew team, or a really strong person in an exceptional athlete in a basketball game, and they can get smoked and beaten just because there's a unity from another team that is actually working together. We see that all the time. It's a concept, as we now know, that applies not just to ourselves, a unity in programs, but to everything that we do. And therein is an introduction to the B1 function. We're talking about clearing up some space, clearing up circuitry, having a model that you can use to be a better version of who you are, how you express. The tool of programming clears that path for ourselves so that we have a unity. Back in the old days, for those that are reading the Office of Shaman, there was a need. You had people that were gathering together as tribes, and their dependence on eating and survival and procreating and not killing each other or being killed by various predators depended very much on that kind of unity. And there was always someone who was, you could say, in charge of that. Someone who had special knowledge the person that held the Office of Shaman, that had knowledge on unity within himself. If you have unity within yourself, you know you're going to have more visibility to see the kind of things that are going on around you. The tribal shaman held that role, and that's a role that's existed for as long as people have been gathering together. It hasn't gone away. It's been a kind of a loosely, seems like, unorganized sort of ragtag bunch. But that doesn't mean that it has gone away. Okay. Good. What do we got here? All right. Well, any questions at this point? You guys following? Let's see if I can coax some of my facilitators. How about you, John Worthington? You've got anything to add at this point?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. All right. So, well, then I said yesterday that we were going to cover this thing that we call in the book dreamers and stalkers. When I read the Office of Shaman, it was like, ooh, goody, you know, the mystery, you know, am I a dreamer or a stalker? And then over the years, I've considered that these things, these roles have been around. It's almost as if people have a certain proclivity or energy configuration where they lean to either being kind of the artists of the world or the get shit done kind of people. For my law firm, as I look back at the progression of where we started to where we are now, I've always had a role in bringing people into the firm or where we would be or the kind of work that we needed to be. But in terms of actually getting shit done part, my managing partner, Glenn Williams, does that exceptionally well. I would say in that respect that what I've done is serve the role as more of a dreamer in the firm. And Glenn has been more of a stalker, bringing that reality in. It seems that the dreamers kind of dream things up and think about ideas and how things should be. And the stalkers are more of the ones that are foot troops on the ground, making things happen. The slide we have on now, stalkers pay attention to the terrain and their prey. Yeah, that's a more of an older version of what stalking is, but you can bring that into the current. Pay attention to their terrain and the prey. What can you pay attention to? I mean, how much, if you sharpen up your thinking and you use a model of thought like the one that we're introducing to you, if you try that on, how much more of a landscape? What can you see? What does the geography show? Pretty handy because most businesses just flailing along kind of blindly. It doesn't have to be that way. Businesses that succeed or people that get to where they're going, they have the skills to navigate through that. And those skill sets seem to roughly fall into categories of people who can dream shit up and then categories of people who can make it happen. Everybody's does both to a certain degree, although it seems to me that people have a proclivity toward one or the other. Would you say that's true, John?
It is absolutely true. these seem to be the results of the way energy flows through people. It's something akin to being left-handed and right-handed, perhaps even. I can't tell you how. There's no studies on it or anything like that would even suggest it. Although these are activities that have traditionally existed, and you can see it in people. You can see them doing these things when they talk to you and when they accomplish things. You can observe it. So it's not something that's just a talk about thing. It's something that's actually taking place for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people often view dreaming or think of dreaming as a sleeping activity,
Yeah, they do.
but
That's too bad. Isn't it?
create a business and see how that definition falls flat. You're going to be doing dreamy kind of tasks when you plan out where the business wants to go.
Well, you might want to think about that way in theory, at least, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more difficult it's easier said than done kind of thing, I think, as one of those deals, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that you can accomplish fairly easily, though. I think so. Maybe not. I think you can.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yesterday we presented the playing field as a geography,
Mm-hmm.
and on the playing field are these 7 concepts that we're now introducing. These 7 functions.
Yeah.
And you pointed out that this is, a geography, a kind of a handy thing to hold or view from which to view any activity, as if you had a lens or a pair of glasses that would give you a certain kind of visibility beyond what you'd have if you didn't hang this structure or hang this geography in any conversation.
Well, I think it works that way, but there are people who may disagree, and that happens.
I
Okay.
well, I don't know that I'd say disagree. I'm sure that's true, but for me, it was more of all right, that sounds nice. What the heck is this? And then, like everything else in life, you're either going to pick it up and try it and see for yourself, or you're not.
Yeah, there's that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Beyond that, or short of that, it's a nice thing. Thank you very much. But it doesn't. But it kind of falls into the category of what I had read before I started to do this work, in terms of hearing that thought is driven by a place below conscious awareness. Yeah, that's real nice.
Mhm.
Check, nod, but never once examined or experienced or experimented how that worked for me and what that meant.
That's one that's elusive for a while for a lot of people, I think. Some people seem to get it right away, and other people, well, they have to struggle with it more, I think. I'm not really sure if there's a reason for that or not. There probably is. I don't know what it would be. But people do seem to have times where they struggle with things more than others. And that seems to be something that people struggle with. So, voila.
Yeah. Where do we, I don't know, where do we begin? Like, where did I struggle? It's almost like the struggle, if I can call it that, was building a different model of thought. I could say even building one that has as part of the structure that upside down pyramid that we looked at before. I mean, with
I
a
can imagine that's probably a challenge for more than just a few folks to do that. It always seems to be, at least, and I think with reason. I think people really do struggle with it, but maybe for a number of reasons. Maybe it's something that they have to, that they maybe almost have to struggle with. I don't know if that would be a fair statement, but it could, but there is something like that that goes on where people just almost damn near have to get down and get dirty and say, okay,
Yep.
what the hell is going on here? And they say it just like that. If they're from NEPA.
Yeah. It's got this kind of interesting aspect that we're born. This is fully operational. Natural mind function in infant and living down at the delta interface between the soul and the mind, and then we build a whole programmatic set on top of that. It's almost like we're born free, and then we're enslaved by our programs, and then maybe someday we kind of fight through the program so that we can be more baby-like.
Well, that would be awfully dramatic, I think, but maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see it that way. I mean, I can see why people could or would perhaps, but I can't do that. I can't do it that way.
Okay.
I don't think anything that I wouldn't say that anything is untoward for somebody who's thinking in that direction, but I can't justify it to myself. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Well,
I don't know, Ken. I think there's a whole lot of useful programming that goes on between being born and now that we want to keep in place. I really don't want to go back into diapers.
Yeah, there's that. That's true. Yeah. Not like you got to reverse it.
Don't go throwing away some of the work that gets done with the idea of a child having it all together. They really don't. There's still a lot of learning that has to go on between there and now.
Yeah. So how is B1? How did this become a working concept in your life, or is it? How does it look to you, the progression of this?
I had to slam up against things till I finally said, you know what? If I'm not in harmony, it plain hurts. It smacks you across the head. And I've been stubborn about things and about this being a way of thinking that might be useful. And there's a lot of point of time where I said, no, it's not useful to me. But then on the other hand, the more I kept going, the more I realized that, no, wait a minute, I can, well, for lack of a better way of saying it, plug this way of thinking in to make things go a lot smoother for me, which made it a lot smoother for the people around me too. I didn't always have to be fighting my own natural way of thinking. So
Yeah, that's
it made life easier for me. It may not be the case for everybody, but it's a good model for me.
Yeah, me too. Why do you think people struggle sometimes with getting their house of cards in order, or dealing with their programming, or so they can be one?
It's an opinion, but I think they have to learn the value of it, and I think that in my case it was trial and error. Now maybe there are people who don't have to learn things as in the most difficult way possible. Maybe people learn things in an easier way, but
Yeah,
it was it's like, okay, let me try this and let me try that, and what happens if I keep on going this way instead of going that way? oh, whoa, this is an easier route. You know, it's just, it has to dawn on you through use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It makes sense in the way that I was talking about it before, that from experience. But for me, it was never a wake up in the morning and say, should I be one today or should I not
Oh, no, no, no,
be
no.
one or not to be one? It
It's,
was more like the lens through which I saw the world was the way I saw the world until I got a hand to or a way to understand that the way I saw the world was not necessarily lining up with the way the world actually was. And in those instances where it wasn't, and there were many, there was a division. There was, a disconnect between perception and reality. That is pretty much, I think, the definition of being something other than one.
yeah, it's funny. You can talk about it looking backward at it, but at the time I was learning these things, I didn't think of it that way. I didn't talk about it that way. It was only after the fact that I could say, oh, well, that was a difference between perception and reality. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute, something changed and it's, whoa, this seems to be an easier way of going for me. And then after a while and after descriptions of what we're talking about, I can say, oh, well, that's what that was. You know, but it's more like it happened before I even could make the whole rational argument for it.
Okay. I can identify with that. I can identify with getting through the Office of Shaman the first couple or few times, or several times for that matter, and getting to the end and looking at those pictorial representations of a playing field and scratching my head and saying, "Oh, that looks nice," but no more than scratching my head and saying it looks nice without.
You
Without.
know what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what kind of got my attention is when I read it and started thinking it is that the idea that I could actually be under one hat, that I could actually be one entity. That was something that I really hadn't considered. And in fact, I was kind of proud of what I saw as the different hats I had. I could be, that I was one way with family, one way at work, whatever. And it had not dawned on me kind of what that was doing to me and how much energy. And what was happening is a lot of times I was just arguing with myself between sort of who should be in charge. So the idea that there was a way to pull that together, that I was actually more than all of that, really kind of stopped me. And then I was like, okay, is that even possible? And so that's something I had to kind of wrestle with for a while about, how could I change that, and what, why those different parts of me, as I thought of it then, were there.
Okay.
And
what were these different parts of you? How do you talk about that?
Oh, there, in some situations, I would be very controlling and wanting to run the show, and other times I was kind of like wanted just to be a good little girl and be told what to do. That's two really different ways to interact with people, and neither one of them was completely honest. Was honest. Yeah. I wasn't only controlling or only passive. But the thing is that those reactions, those responses, they just happened from the way I was experiencing them. Oh, up there, this is how I responded. I couldn't really see that they were there because I at some point had decided, hey, this works. you know, and decided that when I was really little. So I, as a single entity, what wasn't really driving what I was doing. You know, the little kid would pop up, the controlling bitch would show up, you know, and so it kind of got schizophrenic. And so the idea is like, okay, you know, maybe there's a better way to go about this than kind of ping-ponging around between those different parts. What if I actually considered that I'm a single entity, that that I could write programs that would express whatever that was?
Yeah, that sounds like a interesting, luring prospect, maybe to some.
I had a different experience than that, or maybe not so different, but
Is that Pam?
yeah, it's Pam. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I think that it was really like completely mind blowing for me to actually be one, because I always thought that what I was thinking was conscious, but when I understood what I was learning, when I understood what kind of opened my mind to learning that I was just coping, I was just developing skills to help me cope, you know, rather than actually knowing myself. And the breakthrough into that B1 was like, it's so mind bending that it's really taken me years to put words like what we're discussing here, you know, to put words with what the experience actually was. It was so 180 degrees for me.
Okay. I can identify with that. I think we talked in previous episodes about not being able to see what you look with. Not being able to see what you look with. Really? Yeah,
Right.
really. If you can't see what you're looking with, that means that down at that self-meta program level, the level of belief, you know, you don't wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to wear my self-meta program of angry bitch or poor pitiful little pumpkin. You don't. You see the world through that. It's the very lens.
Oh man, really?
Yeah, yeah. You got a pair of You got a pair of rose-colored glasses on, so to speak. If you grafted rose-colored corneas on a baby when they were born, they would insist that the world is rose-colored. That would be a pretty good analogy to what happens anyway. You know, you've got a lens. That's how you see it. You can't see the lens that you're looking with, but it doesn't mean it ain't there.
But it's like on, you know, if you go on like an LSD trip, it really blows your mind kind of open to things you would never otherwise think or see or believe you're seeing. And I think that sort of, without doing drugs, that's what you're sort of doing. You're like completely expanding, like what you first said about, you know, you're sort of born free and then you're enslaved by your programs. But, you know, unless you know that there's something else out there, you're just living that. And so
I agree.
having that blown open is like, you know, trying to share that with other people, you know, that's what this is for. This is for, you know, living it and being it and sharing it.
Yeah, on the LSD side, John Lilly, inventor of the float tank, who did governmental research around the time when people like Ram Dass and others and Timothy Leary were doing that kind of research, said that those kinds of compounds were metaprogrammatically enhancing substances. So they didn't themselves. Hey, there's a picture of Pam. That's you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad we got that up there. That they were like metaprogrammatically enhancing substances. You could, from that place, that level of awareness, do stuff that was, let's say, what you can do in the tank, equivalent to the tank, that you bring your awareness down to a place where the actual metaprograms reside. You slow yourself down, and then you can do something. Now, I know all too often from both people coming out of the float center and some personal experiences that just doing things like that don't equal changing programs, or don't equal B1. I've got lots of examples of how just doing psychedelic drugs doesn't mean that you're going to B1. In fact, it often just means you
Yeah.
funky ideas about some stuff.
I was just using it as a metaphor for mind blowing.
Okay.
Jen had a bite.
What's that, John?
Jen had a bite.
Okay. Any other questions?
Bree, like to say something, I think.
Then we should have Bree say something. Hello, Bree.
Yeah, turn her mic on, please.
Bree is now vocal. You should be good, Bree.
Okay, good. There you go. Yeah, so it was actually recently that I this whole B1 function thing actually started to kind of click into place for myself, because I had this whole thing in place of acting stupid and thinking I was stupid, and then blaming everyone else for pointing out that I was acting stupid. And because a lot of the stuff that I see, because we're talking about dreaming and stalking, which play into this whole B1 function and seeing programming in yourself. For me, I'm a dreamer, and I get visions, basically. They come to me as visions, and because that whole I'm not big enough, I'm stupid, or whatever, all those pieces to that, which actually tie back to a very specific memory that I dealt with the first time I went to Mexico, with having to do with my little brother. And it's really been only like today, actually, that I realized that I wasn't even engaging that side of the playing field. I was actually having a lot of issues in the right side of my body, like the whole side of my body, like my wrists. My right wrist is messed up. A couple years ago, I started having issues in my foot. It went to my knee. I had orientation issues in my hips being out of alignment. So I just watched it like kind of just consume my body. Mm-hmm. And as I was, because I've been watching like the patio chats and talking with people, and I was like, today I was like, holy shit, the middle fingers that I have been putting up and boarding myself up in place to hold myself here in this stupid little girl act is what I was not looking at. And then it all came flooding through.
Seems like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're a design person, so I'm not at all surprised that your proclivity is to dream things up. Your very job is to do things like that.
Yep.
right?
It
You do
is.
branding design for companies and how they can best present their image to the public, whatever that is.
Yep. And I have to be able to dream that accurately for them. And I have to make sure I do that. I actually am doing that B1 function so that I get get that energy flowing by actually addressing the programming that's there. Because the clearer that is up, then the better the design or illustration or whatever it is can be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really cool.
As much as it makes sense that Steph Curry can throw up 3-pointers,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh. Yep.
you gotta like be the ball or be one with
Mm-hmm.
your team to be
Mm-hmm.
that, just like you do with your job.
Yeah. Yep. So I can land that communication on the other side of the playing field.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that, Bray.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions about programming in B1?
Lenore would like to join.
Well, then we're gonna click Lenore, allow to talk. Hey, Lenore. How you doing? Let's go again. How about now?
Yeah, now my mic's on.
Gotcha. I think I turned you off, and then I turned you off, and you turned you on.
Oh, okay.
On.
Gotcha.
No.
So like something that really dawned on me last night is that John had talked to me before about how I'm always trying to be one of the boys. And I remember when he talked to me about it, he was also talking to me about this whole like constantly working and staying busy thing. 'Cause I see a lot of that like around here in Northeast PA. And I wasn't really, at the time when John had said that to me, I had no idea what he was talking about. I insisted that I did know what he was talking about and I understood and I nodded along and I'm like, yep. But like, I had no clue. And I thought about it like last night that when we were talking about like that, how the intuition and empathy function are something that women express, that I've always really ignored those. Like I just like completely blew past them and tried to insist that I don't have to do those. And in thinking about like this B1 thing, one of the things that I always saw myself doing was like Terry had mentioned that like it was like she was wearing different hats. Like she would be try to control in one situation and try to be passive and submissive in other situations. But kind of how I saw it, I'm seeing it now is that it's almost like a dance. Like I would go into a situation and insist that I can be a bitch and that the other person just needs to be my doormat. Like I can just steamroll right over them. And but then it was like, okay, well now it's your turn. You can be a bitch now. And I'll just let you steamroll right over me. And it was like this dance where like I wasn't being one with myself and like actually like using that empathy and intuition and trying to constantly be one of the boys and stand on the other side of the playing field. And like what John had said last night about trying to always be in the front of the horse. That's what I was always trying to do. I was always trying to like be in the front of the horse and say, okay, we're going to do this dance and we're not going to do anything else because you need to feel sorry for me.
Yeah, that doesn't sound as fun as you make it sound.
No. It actually really sucked, but I was like, well, this is the way it's got to be. Everybody's got to feel sorry for me all the time. And it just did not work.
What was it like, just like finally surrendering to it and maybe getting enough clarity of like, oh shit, this really does suck? And then is that, kind of the process of recognition?
It felt like relief.
Mm.
Like it just felt like, because I was just holding on, to that idea with dear life, and just like attacking anyone who tried to come at me with like showing me something different. And like it just felt like, that is so much better. This was not as painless as I thought it was. It's almost like, when you go to the eye doctor and they do that glaucoma test.
Yeah, I've had that.
And it's like that little puff of air in your eye, and you have to stand there, and then there's like that like moment of anticipation that's actually, it's pretty scary, right? Because there's like this like puff of air, and then it comes through, and it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It felt like that, like just like, wow.
Yeah.
And I was also kind of thinking about it, like this whole dreaming and stalking thing. Like, it sounds like since you need the dreaming and the stalking to come together to create reality, it sounds like when you're dreaming or when you're stalking, it has to do with where you're standing in geography on the playing field. Would that be accurate?
I'm not sure, really. I'm not. I'd ask that question to John if he's listening in, because you're posing it as, I'm just thinking about it, that dreaming and stalking would come into play on where you are on the playing field, right? And
not necessarily. It's that if that's what you are, then you might as well be one with that.
okay.
Pat Jones would be my go-to example for somebody who's doing that, because he's obviously a dreamer.
He's an architect. Yeah.
And he struggles though with the stalking aspects of managing an office, for instance. I mean,
Yeah.
he can't do it. It's that's more of a struggle than design is for him.
Yeah.
An example. And so from that perspective, then we could say, well, that's something that's true for him within certain limits to be found experientially, experimentally, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is that true or false? No, I don't think so. Either one. It's just that's how Pat seems to express, or seems to let's say seems to express what he's doing with that part of his life. Well, that's cool. At least it is to me. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think that too. You could, if you want, you could shore up the places where you need, some support in an organization to stalk things, and you could, the dream, let the dreamer dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that you have any choice about that, really, because that's what they're. It's like if what somebody does, that's what they do. You can tell them not to if you want, but I'll tell you that they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
They can't help it. It's like right-handed people, right? Or left-handed people. They're going to write with their left hand. They're going to see it. Now, they're going to pick up the telephone with their right hand, with the wrong hand. They're going to everything's going to be backwards. I can speak from experience.
Yeah, me too. On the right hand, left hand. Would you say that even though people have a proclivity, right, left hand, dreamer, stalker, that you could learn how to do either better? If you're a stalker, you can learn to dream, and vice versa.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
To me, that would just be good common sense kind of stuff. That's all.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Well, cool.
But I think that's simply something that people do. I don't think it depends on where they are. And a lot of times, Lenore, it feels as though that we need to be more magical with this stuff than what it really is. Okay.
Okay.
And that this might be one of those things where you say, okay, well maybe I'll get an advantage if I do it this way, or I think about that way or the other. No, not necessarily. You're pretty sufficient and smart and so forth. You can think about it however you want, damn well please. It's okay. In fact, it might be better for you to think about it however you please than it would be for a lot of other folks, simply because you're an independent cuss. That's a compliment, so you don't
Okay.
get guilty on me here, all right?
In the in the last yoga class I had, actually, my teacher had us come up in the class, and she had us all pick a card, and the card was to kind of give us, an idea of what maybe we might need to be focusing on in our yoga class. And mine said, "You're already doing it. Stop overthinking."
Yeah, well, you should stop doing that. I mean, you've mentioned that a couple of times, I think, and it's like I think it's something you should do, kid.
Yeah.
You're a pretty smart young lady if you quit kid selling yourself so short, Just saying.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
I mean, you don't have to on my account. I'm just saying.
It's one of those things that would seem to make sense. Let's say.
Yeah, and probably be a little less painful.
It really does.
Like, that.
Especially for people around you, kid.
Well, there's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lenore, yeah, people around you. I know that one too, because when you said before that, I think you said you had some experience in finding fights where they didn't exist.
Yeah, especially with you, Ken, actually.
Well, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen that a couple times.
Come on out here. Oh, here comes the truth. Here comes the truth. The truth gonna set you free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was pretty good at.
Right, Lenore, not now. Well, okay, so it's still now. Right.
Well, I don't know, right? I don't. I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're looking for a fight all the time, there's gonna be one somewhere. It's very easy to find. If that's all you're seeking, that's all you're gonna find.
It is.
I'll tell you the story about my guy I know that's a professional MMA fighter. Professional. He's retirement age, but has had 1,000 professional fights. Literally, this guy's fought since he was a teenager till now he's about 45. He fought into his 40s before they pleaded with him, his manager, to stop fighting because he ended up fighting 20-year-olds. But he was one of those types. He would always regale me with his stories of going out on a Friday and Saturday night, and lo and behold, everywhere he went, every bar he went, there was a fight. How come you keep getting into a fight, Tony? And Tony would tell me all the reasons why that he was justified in a fight. He said, "You weren't there, Kaplan. If you were there, you would have seen me sitting at that bar minding my business, and some guy was looking at me askance." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." "How do you know?" "Hey," he said, "you weren't there. He was looking at me." And sure enough, he'd find a fight everywhere.
Sounds like blame.
Yeah, does, right?
Yeah. Like, so I know for me, when I would go looking for those fights, I would always have a reason why it was the other person who was trying to fight with me.
Oh yeah, I know that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like always insisting they are attacking me and I'm this poor, pitiful pumpkin who's being attacked. So I just have to attack back. What else could I do?
Yeah, you're just doing your thing. That's what
Yeah.
I just. Yeah, well, those are good examples of what people go through to get their house of cards in order, to deal with, use the tool of programming so that they can bring under a unity the way they think, or the expression from that pyramid, from the level of soul up through the programming. From a computer point of view, think about the immense energy that would be wasted if I installed another operating system in my MacBook right now that worked, even if it worked somewhat in parallel, but that never happens. It would be at odds, and you'd have an issue really similar to what we're talking about in terms of programming. At the very deepest levels, programmatically, of my MacBook Pro, there would be a conflict between, let's call it, two operating systems. That would be an immense waste of energy. Well, I think that's a way to think about what we're talking about tonight, about B1 function. Programming is a tool which releases the energy governed by B1 function. Deal with the programming. Make sense? Any other questions, comments, remarks? Okay. What do we got for tomorrow night, Terry?
Well, it depends. We can either continue to go a little deeper into B1, or we can move on into harmony.
Okay, well, how about we do one or both those things?
Okay.
Sounds good. All righty then. Going once, twice. Any questions, comments? If not, then how about we see you all tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Good night, guys.
Night.
Cool.
Good night.
Night, night.
Night.
Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Okay.